All right, this is the best sounding mix I've ever done. Let's give it one last listen.
Oh, I might be a little rough around the edges. From the
Sounds
outside,
so good.
it might seem helpless. I've been blessed with
Okay, let's go check it in the car. All right. I can't believe this turned out so good. Here we go.
Need a man with a helping hand. He's always got one to lend. Oh, I might be a little rough around the edges.
What the hell happened? Hey, this music thing just isn't working out for me. Do you think I could have my old job back? Hello? Hello? What's up everyone, Colt Capperrune here. Thanks for stopping by for another video. Before we get into this one, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon next to the subscribe tab so you get notified when I drop sweet new videos. Also, don't forget to give me a thumbs up on this one. So, car mixes. If you have ever checked your mix in the car and it sounded like complete crap and completely different from what it sounded like in your studio, drop me a comment. If this hasn't happened to you, one of a few things is happening. You're either lying to yourself, or you're lying to us, or you don't own a car. So today I want to go over a few things that will absolutely make a drastic improvement on how well your mixes translate. So the reason why when you mix something, it sounds great in your studio, and then you go check it in your car and it doesn't sound like the same thing. It sounds terrible. And one of the things that a lot of us engineers talk about is how well the mix translates. When I did my new room here, when I'm working on a new set of monitors, whatever the case may be, how well does my mix translate from this studio environment into a car, into the PA system in a grocery store? And so how well your mix actually translates from your studio environment to the rest of the world is one of the very most important things in mixing. So in the most boiled down form, why does this actually happen? Why does your mix suck in the car when it sounds good here? Well, it's because your mix actually sucks. And there's no other way to put that. There's no way to beat around the bush. I mean, I was there for a decade, probably more than a decade, before I stopped doing car checks and before my mixes translated extremely well from, the studio to my cell phone to my car to the grocery store to whatever. I think the first step in getting over this is understanding that you have room to improve. The reason why your mix doesn't sound that good in the car is because your mix doesn't sound that good. And once we have accepted this hard truth, that really opens the door for us to figure out how to fix this thing. So one of the reasons this was happening to me back in the day is because I was focusing on the wrong elements in the mix. I was too concerned about how hard does that kick drum thump and how hard do those guitars crush, and like whatever the case may be, I was focusing on the things that were actually not all that important. And in focusing so much on them, I was diverting my attention away from the things that actually really did matter the most within the mix. Now, way back in the day, there wasn't a lot of online resources. I mean, the content that I'm putting out for you guys just simply didn't exist when I was starting out. But eventually, there became a show called Pensado's Place. And arguably the first really accessible way for a new up-and-coming mix engineer to actually be able to hear my heroes talk about what they did. There was an episode, it was way early on, like episode 25 or something, with Jack Joseph Puig. It was a mind-bending episode. I had to watch it like 6 or 8 times to even wrap my head around everything that he said. But one of the things that he said in that episode was that the magic is in the mid-range. And I thought, well, that's a stupid thing to say. What does that even mean? I mean, but I respect his work a lot, and I really respected the way he approached his mixes. And so even if I wasn't going for the same sound as he got from his mixes, his approach and his mindset when he approached a mix I thought was fascinating and arguably the best psychological approach to mixing music that I had ever heard or seen or thought about before. So I watched that episode and I literally went to go mix a song that night in the studio. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to focus on anything below 200 hertz, and I'm not going to focus on anything above like 3K. I'm just going to focus on just the mid-range, and I don't care how hard the kick drum hits or how sizzly the cymbals are or how airy the vocal is. I'm just going to focus on just the mid-range. And so a very interesting thing happened. When I felt like I had all the elements in the mid-range right and it was feeling good, then I'm like, okay, now let's listen to like the low end of the kick drum and the relationship between the bass guitar and the kick drum. And I'm like, well, that sounds really good. I didn't actually like have to do anything. And then I'm like, well, let's listen really intently to like the high end of the cymbals and, you know, maybe of the acoustic guitar and the vocal, whatever was in the song, the synthesizers or whatever. And I'm like, well, that sounds really good, but I didn't really do anything to it. And so like we do, I printed the mix and I go down and listen to it in the car and I'm like, well, this sounds really good. And it was a true light bulb moment for me within my mixing path and my trajectory, that if I focus on the mid-range, that most of the time, everything else just kind of falls into place. And that if you get the mid-range wrong, the whole mix is wrong, no matter how good the low end on your kick drum is or how airy the vocal is. It doesn't matter if everything within the mid-range isn't working together. So this is why nowadays I rely heavily on my Auratone 5C monitors, because they really shine a spotlight on the mid-range, and it's so valuable to be able to mix on them and only be able to hear the mid-range. And so if you can get the mix working on those speakers, it's probably going to work literally everywhere. And it's also one of the reasons why I use NS10s. Now NS10s are a bit polarizing, you know, because they have a love-hate reputation with a lot of people, but they really do make me focus on very specific parts of the mid-range. And so between my Auratones and my NS10s, I am laser focused on this mid-range for 85% of the mix, and then I'll switch over to my Event Opals for the low end and for the high end, and really make sure the very last thing that I do is make sure that those like kick drum and bass guitar or 808 and synthesizer are like working together in a good way. So that was a true light bulb moment for me. And honestly, getting a pair of NS10s and a pair of Auratone 5Cs were also like a big, massive step forward, because it forced me to focus on this stuff. Now, one of the things that I didn't realize was going to be a side effect of getting these couple other sets of monitors is that mixing on multiple sets of monitors really made sure my mixes translate. So if I am mixing on my NS10s and I flip to the Auratones and it sounds good on those two, and then I flip to the Event Opals and it sounds good on that, and put my headphones on and it sounds good there. If my mixes sound good on all three of those things, it's literally going to sound great everywhere. And so mixing on more than one pair of monitors, or at the very least just headphones and a pair of monitors, and constantly switching back and forth until there are no changes to be made in either set of monitors or in the headphones and your monitors. And once there's no changes to be made across anything, you're probably really good to go, and you're probably going to check it in your car and it's going to sound awesome. Now, in my mind, the single biggest factor in this is acoustic treatment. I know you guys hear me talk about acoustic treatment a lot, but I genuinely think it's one of the single most important things in mixing and in making your mixes translate. And I've said this before, but for those of you who are new to the channel, by the way, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell and thumbs up and comment, all that. I really appreciate it. When you're listening, when you're mixing music, sound is coming out of the monitors and it's hitting your ears. And sound is also coming out of the monitors and it's hitting the ceiling and it's hitting your ears. And it's hitting the walls and hitting your ears. And it's going behind you and hitting your ears. And it's traveling every one of these different paths that the sound takes to your ears. It takes a different amount of time in order for that sound to travel that distance. And so what happens is you end up with what they call phase smear, where the waveforms are actually smearing in the phase domain as they hit your ears, because it's hitting your ears from so many different directions in so many different times. And so if you Google acoustic treatment first reflection points, and you get your ceiling cloud and your first reflection points on your side and behind you, it goes a massive long ways into making your mixes translate, because you're actually hearing what's coming out of the monitors. The choices that you're making when mixing is based on accurate information, because you're actually hearing what's coming out of the monitors. And so this is a extremely important part of making your mixes translate. And arguably, if you just were going to do one thing from this video, acoustic treatment should be it. Now again, I have to say this, so this is a standalone video. Not foam, not Auralex. Make sure you get broadband acoustic treatment. Owens Corning 703, Owens Corning 705, some Echo Cell, like whatever it is, make sure it covers as wide of a frequency spectrum as possible, and specifically as low as possible. Foam in and of itself doesn't really do anything below like 500 hertz at all, and so your low end is, you're never going to hear accurate low end if you're using foam. So after you've taken care of your acoustic treatment, and you have more than one set of monitors, and you're focusing on the mid-range, the next thing is just time. Just doing it over and over and over, and taking something to completion and releasing. So I think one of the most important things in actually growing is that you finish something, you put it out in the world for release, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, a month later, you reflect on that, and you can much more accurately see what could have been better or what was done really, really well when you've separated yourself from it and you get to reflect on it later. And so taking a project or a song all the way to the end, finishing it, calling it done, releasing it out into the world, taking some time off from it and reflecting, and doing this over and over and over, dozens and dozens and hundreds of times. This is really also a big part of it. Hope this helped you. Don't forget to drop me a comment if it did. I appreciate you guys watching so much. This is one of the things that I struggled with the absolute most early on as a mix engineer, and it was one of the most rewarding hurdles I've ever cleared in my whole career, was getting to the point, now I don't do car checks at all anymore, and getting to that point where I'm confident that when I call a mix good in this room, it's good. That was an enormous weight off my shoulders and made me feel so much more, I don't know, legitimate, I guess, but it's something that was very, very important to me, and so I hope that this helped you, and I hope that you get there too. Drop me a comment, let me know if you have any questions on any of this. I'll try to get back to all the comments. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Oh, I might be a little rough around the edge.